All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a massive, multi-million-dollar bet that could literally make or break the future of clean energy. And believe it or not, it all boils down to one simple-sounding question. How do you get the size of a giant battery just right?
So put yourself in this position for a second. Imagine you're running a massive solar farm, or maybe a factory that's going 24/7. You know you need a battery to store all that energy. But we're not talking about popping some AAs in your TV remote, right? This is a huge, multi-million-dollar call. So the big question is, how big does it need to be? And here's the kicker. How do you make absolutely sure that this giant, expensive investment is actually going to pay for itself? Because if you get it wrong, well, you're not just being a little inefficient. You're looking at a massive concrete and steel paperweight that could tank your entire project for years to come.
Okay, so let's get into why this is so tough. For the longest time, investing in these big battery energy storage systems, you'll hear them called BS, has felt like a super high-stakes guessing game.
I mean, before you can even think about signing a check, you're just hit with this wall of questions. How big should the thing actually be? What's the real ROI going to look like, not just the shiny number in the sales pitch? Out of all the vendors out there, who's giving you the best bang for your buck? And hey, once it's up and running, how do you even operate it day to day to get the most out of it?
Well, the old way of doing things, it was basically a mix of super complicated spreadsheets and, just general rules of thumb. And the result? Well, the data shows it time and time again. You'd end up with systems that were way too big, didn't work as well as they should have, and worst of all, just didn't make the money they were supposed to. But what if you could just ditch all that guesswork and replace it with actual certainty? What if you had a smarter, data-driven tool to help make these massive decisions? Well, that is exactly where a platform called eStack comes into the picture.
So eStack comes from a company called EWISER Labs, and it's this cloud-based platform built to tackle this very problem head-on. The best way to think about it is like a superpowered toolkit for analysis and control, and its whole job is to take the risk out of these big battery investments.
And what's really cool is how versatile this thing is. It doesn't matter if you're a factory trying to slash your power bill, that's what they call behind the meter, or a huge solar farm selling power back to the grid, that's front of meter. It even works for something like a remote island microgrid. The tool just adapts.
And you want to see the impact on the bottom line? Check this out. There's a case study with a hotel in Malaysia, and by using eStack's optimization, that project could pay for itself in just about 3 years. That is the kind of solid, predictable number that lets you swap out guesswork for actual confidence.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does this all work? What's the magic behind it? Well, it all comes down to its prediction engine. You can think of it as the secret weapon that powers the entire system.
Deep down, at its core, there's a powerful machine learning service. It's called the EDM, which stands for Energy Data and Model API. So here's the flow. A user on the eStack platform wants to run a simulation, right? They hit go. eStack sends a request to this EDM API. Then the machine learning models fire up and get to work, pretty much predicting the future. And finally, they send all that juicy data back to eStack so it can run its financial calculations. So what is it actually predicting? Well, it focuses on 3 core things. First, it forecasts the building's energy demand, what the industry calls load. Second, it predicts what electricity prices are going to do in the future. And third, if you've got solar panels, it forecasts how much juice they're going to generate. If you can nail those 3 predictions, you can model the future with some seriously impressive accuracy.
All right, now let's get to the part that really matters, the money. How do we connect these fancy predictions to actual dollars and cents? Because this is what turns a piece of clever tech into a really powerful investment tool.
So one of the main ways these batteries actually make money is through something called energy arbitrage. And it's really just the classic buy low, sell high idea, but for electricity. It's simple. You use the battery to charge up on cheap power when nobody wants it, like the middle of the night. Then you either use that stored energy or sell it back to the grid when prices are sky high during peak hours. But here's the catch, right? To actually make money off those price swings, you've got to know they're coming. You have to predict them first. Without a good forecast, you're basically just gambling blind. And that is why that prediction engine we talked about is so absolutely crucial. It's the key that unlocks all of these profits.
So eStack takes all those predictions and then lets you play around with different strategies. For instance, you could go with an aggressive strategy. That'll get you the biggest annual savings and the quickest payback period, but it's going to wear your battery out a lot faster. On the other hand, you could choose a conservative approach. The battery will last way longer, but your returns will be lower. It's all about letting investors find that perfect sweet spot that matches their financial goals. And look,
This isn't just a bunch of theory on a spreadsheet. The folks at EWISER Labs make a really big point that their models have been tested and proven against how real, physical battery systems actually perform out in the wild. That commitment to real-world data, that's what builds trust. It's what separates a reliable forecast from just, an optimistic guess.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. What does all of this really mean for the bigger picture? Because this is about way more than just one project's return on investment. This is about paving the way for a smarter energy future for all of us.
Right now, the tech is really focused on markets where the money side of things makes the most sense. So in a place like Malaysia, it's all about dodging those crazy high peak demand charges. In Singapore, where prices can swing wildly, it's about playing that arbitrage game. And in Australia, it's about tapping into multiple revenue streams, like getting paid to help keep the grid stable.
The impact of a tool like this really does ripple out across the whole industry. The system integrators, they can design way better projects and win more business. The consultants, they can give their clients advice that's actually backed by hard data. And the asset owners, the ones writing the checks, they can finally invest with some real confidence, knowing their numbers are built on solid ground.
So when you boil it all down, by taking the guesswork out of these huge, multi-million-dollar investments, this kind of technology is speeding up our shift to a cleaner, smarter energy grid. It's proof that the road to a sustainable future isn't just paved with hardware, it's paved with smarter data. And that kind of leaves you with one big question, doesn't it? If data can solve the energy puzzle, what's next? What other massive global challenges